Apologies.
Thank you. So we're gonna do some sharing in the chat now. Folks have already started doing that, which I appreciate. And I'll try to summarize some of what. Okay. Yep. Understanding some of the differences in. Okay, I'm gonna try to so keep sharing in the chat. I'm gonna try to summarize some of what I already saw. Just for folks who've been here for a while, from JTPA to WIA to WIOA, understanding what some of the expectations around service delivery, how those have changed. Saw someone talking about the challenges of really capturing the intensity of counseling that happens sometimes. Saw someone else talk about kind of the assessment and plan development aren't really being captured to the extent that they're happening. That interest in seeing more basic skills and academic skills highlighted in your mix. Bergen shared that they really feel like what they're seeing in their snapshot is below their actual numbers, and I think we can talk a little bit more about whether that's a sense of because things aren't being entered, or that the pull, because of the way the data is being pulled, feel that it's a mixed bag of accuracy I'm seeing right now. Someone else talked about wanting more industry skills. And I think also, right, there's the reality that this snapshot is, fully takes place in this period of COVID, and that service delivery and service engagement has been really affected, was really affected during that time. More orientation activities, other things that people seem to think that there's just the charts reflecting lower numbers than you would expect in a lot of different areas. Monmouth says that their snapshot doesn't seem accurate. So these are the kinds of things that we kind of want to get a sense of, because just perfectly honestly, right, this is the first time we pulled this data in this way. There could be questions about how there could be additional parameters that we need to put on to create a more accurate snapshot. But this is the best we have right now. So just kind of curious, what else folks are seeing. Cynthia, yeah, do you want to, thanks for that. We're not seeing the complexity of the lives of folks coming in. So the report is including including Title I adult dislocated worker participants and any activities or services connected to that. This goes back to guidance with regard to entering activities, right? Because activities are part of actually how we're constructing this story of what's happening in your local areas. So there's hearing that there's probably some opportunity to create more clarity around that, so that part of the story is accurately reflected. Where exactly in AOSOS these snaps? So the snapshots are coming through data like summarizing an analysis that we did internally on our team. I should have explained that. From ORI did a poll of all of the activities and services that were entered that were connected to adult dislocated worker Title I participants in PY20, and we generated these snapshots based on that information. So I think part of what we would like to do is longer term have ways of having these kind of snapshots be more automated, but part of it too is getting clear about where some of the inaccuracies might be with this, what additional choices or information would be helpful to have in these snapshots. Skill up numbers are really low. So, hopefully this is a first step in getting to something that could continue to be, that would be available more regularly to you all. And the other thing, I did see Cynthia's question too. This is only for adult dislocated worker services, so this doesn't include any youth participants. Our goal is to create something that would look at look at the same in the same way for youth participants, but this is just those that were entered around adult and dislocated worker participants. Places in training was extremely low. Will you be sending a copy of this training to the person? It would be. Yep, we're gonna be sharing. We're going to be sharing this training with you all the materials. And I think we can also talk about, hopefully what, this is designed to really be, these resources are designed for you as staff. And if there are things that would be helpful kind of at a state level for communicating different pieces of this through to participants, we can absolutely talk about that. So Cynthia just put up the other question. I think folks are kind of answering both, which I appreciate. Based on our earlier conversation today, what other services would you like to see in this service mix? It would be helpful if services that are entered would automatically generate activities instead of having to duplicate entries. Yeah, and honestly, this is a mix of both. So it's pretty easy to make this pull of both funded services and activities. So, I think it's just more how, and this has really been, Kamlesh has developed this new set of reports around activities and services that partially we're kind of building off of. So I think we can continue to work with ORI in making sure that this is built in ways that are useful to you. I see Jane also asking if we can confirm some of the data versus NJ Performs, and certainly I think that is a piece to really understanding if we're providing kind of internal snapshots like this, how they are similar or different from the way that NJ Performs is sharing data. Keeping in mind that we are all counselors with different populations. Some are youth counselors, some are displaced homemaker counselors, some are WIOA training counselors. In this instance, we must keep in mind that we are counseling for training and reemployment, but we are not acting in any mental health counseling capacity, as many are not mental health counselors. Absolutely, we recognize that, right? That the counseling in a lot of cases means career counseling in terms of the kinds of activities that we're seeing. For youth, it might be a little bit different, but we are certainly, mental health partners are one of the optional partners in one-stops, and certainly some of those kinds of resources can be available through partnerships. Follow-up services alongside follow-up attempts. So capturing, Rodney, I'm not sure. You'd like to see more in the mix. Got it. Okay. Thanks, Rodney. I lost my track. Data snapshot does not reflect all activities and services provided. So we can definitely, again, we can kind of try to unpack together why that might be, what you guys are seeing when you are pulling data, or your thoughts, and what might be some of the differences. A service that is comprehensive, includes many of the basic activities all clients go through, would be helpful and save tons of time with data entry. Yeah, we can talk a little bit more about that. I think part of what we're trying to do with the AOSOS technical guide, though, too, is really pull apart different services. So this is actually something from the youth side, too. A lot of times we do see kind of a general service, funded service that's entered that's representative of several different program elements, but we actually need to get better about really tracking kind of individual program elements. And so I think we need to kind of continue to find this balance between ways to make sure that a clear story and a comprehensive story for participants is in AOSOS, but also weighing against the data entry burden for all of you. And honestly, in developing the AOSOS technical guide, we really did try to keep that in mind. But it's going to continue to be through dialogue and conversation that we can kind of figure out the best ways to do both. I I think I can make a case that the choices of services selection on AOSOS are confusing, subject to misinterpretation, and sometimes duplicated. I would like to see some streamlining. I am agreeing with Kim. Looks like there's a lot of thumbs up to that comment. And the technical guide is an attempt to begin to move in that direction, but there's more streamlining that we can definitely do together. So if you do in the guide, especially with funded services, we have highlighted specific service codes and service descriptions to use for specific kinds of services. We do see a lot right now that different local areas use different service codes to essentially describe the same sets of services. And that's what we're hoping to begin to establish with this guide, is some common ways of capturing information. And certainly we see things like with job support, assistance and placement, that there are several different things, Cynthia. Right. So these are the tables in the guide that really highlight, okay, if these are kind of the preferred codes to be using, the preferred descriptions. In addition, if you keep going down to Cynthia, there's the job placement and support activities. So we also know that we know that there are some different kinds of, there's some overlap in the activities that you can show for job preparation, search and placement. There's more streamlining we can do. I think for this first guide, we just also wanted to just begin to just create ways of being able to kind of really just begin to kind of categorize and begin to create some consciousness about when we select a code or when you're selecting a description in AOSOS, right? The more that we can start to have some consistent ways of doing that, the easier it is going to be for us to actually make sense of the data as we move forward, right? In terms of being able to like more easily generate the kind of snapshot that we generated today. So again, more work that we can do on this. Is the state considering connecting AOSOS with geographic solutions? It would help with placing our clients in employment and data entry. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure, Pamela, what exactly you mean, but there are plans to replace AOSOS at some point. I think part of our work with the technical guide is also to say, hey, let's not wait until that point in time. We want to get clear on some of this data entry. We also think that this kind of clarity around data entry will benefit us even with a new system. And again, continuing to include Jackie and her team like really deeply in these conversations, as well as data validation, which does a lot of which is really they're responsible for around a lot of the reporting and validating our reporting to USDOL. I'm not sure I'm totally answering your question, Pamela. This is a lot of great stuff again. So it sounds like there's some questions and concerns about the accuracy of the snapshots. Even without that, you guys generated a lot of observations about things where you feel like numbers are low, or you think that there's actions you can take to better have the information that's coming out of AOSOS reflect the services and ways that you're engaging with participants. I'm going to pause here. That was a lot. I feel like I was trying to keep up with all the comments. But this is really just a first step. Hopefully we can get into deeper conversations around all of this tomorrow during office hours as well. If folks have a chance to do some investigating up, and have thoughts on where there is potentially some underreporting or overreporting, we're interested in that. But we know we've thrown a lot at you guys today, and we really just want to say that this is the beginning of a conversation. We released the technical guide, the AOS technical guide. I think it was in October. We're now following up. We recognize it's a really dense document. We wanted to have this set of trainings and the office hours to really be able to dig into what's in the guide in a different way. We hope that you feel like this is a starting point for that, but we're also leaving you with a number of resources, and we're going to be kind of continuing to build these resources out. But one is that you can actually find William Jean-Jacques' AOSOS record in the AOSOS test environment. So if you don't have access to the test environment, you can share that with your TA liaison, and we can figure out, help make sure that you get access to that. That's also, that's an area where you can also practice with data entry, and it doesn't hit them, it's separate from the regular system. So that's one thing. The second is that the case videos will be made available to you all, and we'll be sharing those out. We do need to make that one change to the first videos to make sure that we're including eligibility determination, but we will be getting these out to you guys, and you can review them, you can share them. Again, we hope that they're useful in kind of taking the density of the AOSOS guide and offering it in a different, offering a lot of that information in a different way. The third piece, which I mentioned earlier, is that the AOSOS toolkit videos, and I see Terry's mentioning it in the chat, are incredibly helpful. Jackie and her team with Casita actually created these PowerPoints. There's a set of PowerPoints and there's a set of videos. And we referenced these a ton on our team as we were developing this case and developing this training. So particularly when it comes to entering funded services and some of the information around achievement objectives, they're incredibly helpful set of resources. And then last, we also want to share, if you guys have seen us talking before, you've heard us talk about the NJ WIOA Workforce Professionals resources. If you Google NJ WIOA, it will bring you to the New Jersey WIOA webpage. There is a section called Workforce Professionals Resources. Everything that we have creating new policies and guides, the AOSOS technical guide that we're talking about today is in that section of the New Jersey WIOA website. So please visit. We will continue to, our goal is just to continue building resources that are valuable to you all. We're going to be reflecting a ton on the information you guys all have shared today. To help, to identify some additional directions and welcome the conversations that we'll have with you all in office hours as well. So the next slide just shares an overview of some of the resources that we have put out and some of their connection to this is another format that we've used to kind of show this service delivery flow in some of our prior documents, including, I believe this is also reflected in, I think it's reflected in the AOSOS technical guide as well. In any case, this is just an overview. We have a series of training videos that we have created. We have an assessment technical assistance guide that goes into a lot of details about kind of building out a robust assessment process that includes academic, occupational, and supportive service assessment. We also released a supportive services technical assistance guide that really goes into what the possibilities are for providing supportive services with WIOA dollars. We also, there's been a huge emphasis on work-based learning. We have new policies out on the job training and incumbent worker training. We also most recently put out a policy refresher, which actually isn't included here on this, we just put it out at the end of December. That is a policy refresher on work-based learning. And we do have a new placement, exit, and follow-up policy that really clarifies the opportunity for providing job assistance and placement supports during training, post training, before training, and more about kind of some new expectations around follow-up, especially for adult and dislocated worker participants. so all of this, again, is available if you go to the NJ WIOA Workforce Professionals Resources site. So we are a few minutes ahead. We just want to really capture what questions you all are left with, how you will use the tools we shared from today's session to strengthen data entry in your local area. And again, if you are up for it, thank you to everybody who shared your exit plans earlier this morning, to take a picture and share it with us. But in the meantime, if folks want to pop in the questions that they're left with, we can capture those. We can, potentially try to answer some. We are going to stay on the line. So if there's anything that people want to, and we'll open up the mics so that folks can ask questions. But again, we know you've been with us for almost 2.5 hours now, some of you more than that, and we appreciate you taking the time today. And we'll be sending out notice about the office hours. We'll also be staying on to answer questions, and you always have the opportunity to connect with your TA liaisons. The last piece is that we do have a feedback survey that we'll also send out to everyone, but we'd love to have folks share that fill out that survey to give us feedback as well. So those are some of our next steps. Thank you all. Sensi, do you want to go back to the exit ticket just so folks have? Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, guys. Feel free to share any questions, or we'll see you at office hours, or we'll talk to you soon. Thank you all. Thank you.
I'm going to allow folks to unmute, if that's okay, Sarah.
That sounds good. Yep.
Hang on. Okay. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so anyone who would like to verbalize their questions, they can at this time.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Rob over at Bergen. How are you today? Thanks for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks. I have a question regarding the case manager. I'm not sure the exact terminology in OSIS, but I know that the counselors have a way of adding cases to their case manager, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so you mean like using AOSOS to track their participants they're working with?
Exactly. So my question is, I'm the supervisor here. I'm the manager that's in play here. I recently got hired and replaced Barry Lowe, who was here for a long time, and he did a great job. And one of the things that I'm trying to get a grasp on is if there is a way for a manager, for example, a supervisor of counselors, to access that or find a way to track those clients that they're working with a little bit better, as far as not having to go in individually, but maybe some kind of case management tool that's available to supervisors. If that exists in OSIS, I'm not sure if it does.
This actually came up, someone who shared one of their exit tickets was raising the potential for some of the ways that achievement objectives and the dates in there can actually be used to kind of track different, just kind of track what's going on. Honestly, this is an area that I do not know a lot about and that we as a team have not focused on as much. But I think it's a great question. And something that we can follow up on. I do think that AOSOS toolkit that we shared has some materials that could be helpful to review, and we can take a look at that and also talk to Jackie to see what might be kind of what resources might already exist that you can look at that really helps explore what some of those opportunities are to, through AOSOS, create reminders and kind of get lists of
taking questions,
activities that you sorry.
Yeah, taking questions.
Hey, just make sure you're muted if you're still on the call, because we did open up the mics. So Rob, we can follow up with what already exists, and I think that's definitely an area that we'd like to help connect you to resources on.
Thank you.
Great. I also think I see Cynthia saying she personally adds all the clients to her caseload before assigning them to staff. I think that there are probably, we probably have a lot of expertise of folks who were on this call who might be using it in that way that we can draw on as well too.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Any other questions that folks wanted to connect with?
Sarah?
Now, yeah, go for it, Lillian.
I just have a question because I'm looking at the snapshot. So where exactly did this report, come from? Was that from NJ Performs, you said?
No, it's from a poll that ORI provided, and then we created the snapshot. So there just could be differences in how they pulled the information, that it's showing up differently than it would in NJ Performs.
Okay, because I just went, as we were going through the meeting, I ran into the other website, LWIAMR, and where I can get a snapshot, I can kind of see where we were at for that PY20, which I know it was a lot lower numbers because of the pandemic. A lot of the vendors were closed, but the numbers are, although it's lower than usual, it's a lot higher. Like we only had 3 people in training in the snapshot. So, me as an MIS, I panicked. I said, wait a minute, this is not right. I know we put more people in. So I was just wondering where the snapshot was generated from, because definitely it doesn't, it's a lot lower than what we have.
Okay, so we can look into why that might be. And if you share, if folks share what really doesn't look right, we can also, or even the information that you have, then we can go back to ORI and kind of flesh out why the numbers might be a little bit different. Again, it could be that we need to pull data somewhat differently. Because we do want to make sure that as you guys are kind of reflecting on what's in the technical guide and what's not on the technical guide, that you have a good snapshot of information for your local areas.
Right. Okay, I just panicked a little when I saw.
Don't panic. First of all, this is, I know, this is the part that was like, we just really wanted to provide some overview of, like, even if the data, even if the numbers aren't exactly right, like, this is how we want to be able to kind of start viewing this information, right? To be able to really see, what kind of services and activities, and just to show that what we're putting into AOSOS does kind of add up to a story, right, of people's flow through services. So, hopefully, again, this is a first opportunity to talk through a snapshot like this. And it's not being utilized from a performance perspective. It's really a tool for you all to reflect on and to just add to this conversation.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sarah.
No, yes, don't. I will send out a note to just say, don't panic, anyone. There's.
Okay.
We just wanted.
Yeah, I ran because
I think it's pulling.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pulling data in a different way than folks are used to seeing too, because
Right.
it's not based on participants isn't what was driving it. It was literally all the services and activities entered in PY20.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because when I ran the report, I can see that we had, for PY20, we had 20 adults that went into occupational training, as well as 56 actually 68 of the dislocated workers. So that's why I said, when I saw the number
Okay.
3, I said, this just doesn't add up. But okay, so
It might have something to do with the start and end dates too, like that it was only pulling from one or the other. But we can look into that.
okay.
But that's what's helpful for you to say, like, this piece of it doesn't feel right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah.
Thanks, Lillian.
So we did get
We'll hang on for extra minutes.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I was just going to say, we did get a question from Danielle, and she asked, can AOSOS training be provided that will identify what staff member is responsible for completing AOSOS fields, counselors versus other staff?
I think that's honestly to some extent up to local areas. I don't know that there's like a specific requirement from the state perspective, but it's something we can certainly talk about more with folks.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key is that this is meant to be a case management system too, right? And not just a reporting system. And to figure out the balance of what is the information that counselors can enter in real time or close to real time. We know that's happening in a lot of local areas, but we also know that there's a lot of division of labor around how things get entered. And that can look different for different local areas. Any other questions of anyone still on the call? Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining. And we look forward to seeing folks at office hours. And following up lots of snapshots. Okay, what are the areas that are designated to counselors only in AOSOS? I think it's mostly the confidentiality statements in Comp Assess. Most of the other fields should be available to other staff too. But we can confirm that, Danielle. No problem. Okay, thank you guys.